Hey everybody, it's Andrea Pocket. I am president and co-founder of Stigma-Free Mental Health Society. We are an organization nationally in Canada, and we are very passionate about awareness, understanding, and the acceptance of ourselves and other people. Today on Stigma-Free Voices, I am super excited for our guest, Daniel. How are you doing? Where are you tuning in from? We would love to know.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I'm streaming from New Jersey in the USA.
Ah, amazing. We love our American friends. So this is great. And I met
You
you
guys are
at
great.
the, yeah, the Canadians. I met you at the Real Summit in New York, and it was really a wonderful summit. What did you think about the energy in that building?
It was fantastic, and I was really interested in it because in this industry, it's specifically in this area, it's like you see the same people over and over again. It's like, okay, why am I going to this conference? And it was such a different collection of people that really had different perspectives on the industry. So it was really interesting conversations and dialogues, and especially when you get international voices in there and just different perspectives that make it more of a dynamic conversation, a high level conversation, rather than just the surface level, how you doing, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I really loved that summit. It was great. I
Yeah.
wish
And
I
that's
could
where we met.
get yeah, I wish I
Yeah.
got an opportunity to go to Davos, but couldn't fit it into my
Yeah.
schedule.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so people, this is the Real Men's Mental Health Foundation. We are a partner with them, and we totally want you to check it out. So yes, I just going to read your bio, Daniel. And I
Absolutely.
really love your bio. So we're going to go a little bit into your story first after I read that. A little bit about healing US communities. I believe this is a organization that you founded, but I want to hear from you all about that. And I'm writing my memoir, and you have a memoir. So I picked up your book at the summit, and you just gave it to me, and I was super inspired by that, and I really appreciate it. I haven't dug in just yet, but now that we're having this conversation, I'm going to be even more inspired to do so. And I would love for you to
Mm,
share at the end how people can get a book and stuff. That would be great.
absolutely.
Okay, so I'll start the bio. Daniel is a leading voice in reshaping mental health and addiction the mental health and addiction treatment landscape. Having personally experienced the gaps and failures of the traditional system, he was driven to build a model of care that is more compassionate, effective, and accessible for people. So, centered on long term healing, his approach emphasizes extended aftercare, strong collaboration between clinical and peer support, integrative therapies, and multiple pathways to recovery. At the core of Daniel's mission is a commitment to meeting people where they're at and restoring purpose, and also ensuring that financial barriers that they don't prevent people from receiving help. Wow. So let's dig in. For anyone hearing your story for the first time, what was the moment that marked the beginning of your journey into addiction, and the moment marked the beginning of your recovery?
Hmm. So it's hard to say where exactly addiction begins and ends, or begins, should I say. But I know as soon as I ingested my first substance that, looking back on that now, it was a very turning experience for me. My first substance that I ever used was marijuana.
Mhm.
And I discussed this in the book, just things that I dealt with this anxiety since I was a young child. I always wore the weight of the world on my shoulders. And as soon as I decided to try marijuana, um, it lifted off me instantly. And from
Mhm.
that point, I knew I wanted this and I needed it. Now,
Mhm.
I wouldn't say at that point I was a drug addict. That came
Mhm.
a lot of time later. You know, you go through the motions and stumble enough, you end up physically addicted at that point. But yeah, right from the start, as soon as I ingested a substance, I instantly fell into that self-medicating motivation to continue using this substance. I always say that I found a comfy blanket before I found a coping skill. And that's exactly what happened. The moment that pulled me out of addiction, again, it's not like a one point, it's a stack of events that occurred. The end of my addiction story was quite theatrical in a lot of ways, where I disappeared into the desert, into California after a treatment center. I went out to California to go to treatment. I left that treatment center. I ended up relapsing, and I disappeared into the desert, thinking that if I separate myself from my family, I no longer hurt them, and I'll just tune them out of my life. Obviously I was wrong about that. It doesn't matter where I am. I drag them with me, right? And their emotions. But my mom came out and found me, and I don't know how she found me, but she's like a super detective, figured out where I was. And she literally broke down a door at an abandoned hotel that I was living in at the time. And told me, hey, I'm here. We're going to go get you some help. And it was a very surreal moment for me, because I'm in complete filth and disgust. I'm living in an abandoned building. I was actually tying off to inject myself with methamphetamine, and all of a sudden it's dark in the room. The door bursts open, and there's just light pouring into the room, and I just see a silhouette of somebody, and I hear my mother's voice, and it was surreal, and I regressed to like almost like a 4-year-old state. And I said, okay, I'll be coming with you. And I got in the car with her, and we went back to a house. She was going to bring me back to New Jersey. And then the psychosis kicked in. So I put my feet in the dirt, kept going, pleading with her to let me die. And she wouldn't let that happen. And she called the police, and ended up getting in a full-out fight with the police. And I was thrown into a psych ward. They have a law in California called 5150, which is really helpful to families that are dealing with this, because normally you have no exercise of control over an individual, right? You kind of just have to let them do whatever they're going to do. But on you, they can actually take your rights and force you to go to treatment.
Yeah, involuntary admission. Definitely know about that, because I as well was doing that. Yeah, I know sometimes it is necessary, right? Like it worked for you, it seemed. Let's
a lot of people are against it, but I think it's a great tool.
And everybody has their own opinion.
Involuntarily committed. I was resistant the whole time. I tried to escape the psych ward multiple times. They would hit me with the booty juice, they call it, and throw me into like the padded room, and come 2 hours later. It was quite a traumatic experience, but I eventually got to go into my last treatment center, and they opened me up to a whole set of different pathways to recovery, some ones that I'd never even heard of before. And I was like, wait, there's more than one way to do this. And I found what worked for me there, and I loved it. And that's where the real motivation started. Like, wow, there might be something that fits who I am, instead of me being told to fit into this box that I feel like I don't fit into. So that was the moment of renewal, if you will.
Wow.
Then a lot more work ensued afterwards.
Yeah. So let's just briefly touch on your family. What kind of role did they play in your recovery?
A huge part. One of the things that I've learned throughout this recovery process is that we have to separate humans from their behavior. A lot of times we identify ourselves off of things that we do, right? And when someone asks you, who are you? Most of the time we respond, oh, I'm a CEO of a company. I'm a this, I'm a that. Those are all things that you do, right? They're not who you are. So I have had to learn to separate. In order for me to get past the shame and the guilt of my past and my behaviors, I had to separate myself from them and say there's a possibility that I'm something greater than those things. And what I found at the end of that tunnel is that as an individual, I've always had values and morals, right? Values, things that I hold close to me and that make me who I am, right? And I just have to learn how to exercise those in every decision that I make. Those values were created by my parents. I've leaned into, I was blessed and privileged to have a really loving family and a supportive family. And they took me in after my last treatment center, after everything. And I really have them to look to for the values that they entrusted with me. And I come from a very dynamic family, like large Italian personalities, from the Northeast. But my family was always go-getters, self-starters and entrepreneurs. So I took a lot of those lessons that I've learned growing up. And my family's always been an open door kind of family. Like if someone is in need of a room, our home was always a hotel to somebody. So I've taken a lot of, the lessons learned how growing up and applied them to my life. And it's made me who I am today for sure.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for answering that. And I was just curious if we can move into maybe just share like one misconception about addiction and recovery that you wish the general public understood.
Yeah. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things I find that is always an issue when we're talking about resources coming to an area is that like not in my backyard issue, NIMBY, right? But I really think that derives from people's belief that people can't change, which is such a fallacy because every human changes. Again, your values may not change, but how you react and adapt and perceive the world changes throughout time because you have more experiences, right? So I would love people to understand that people can change. And I would love them to understand that using, I call them awfulizing words, right? Infinite words, like people can't, shouldn't, words that give no possibility to anything better. Be very careful with the language you use because it might be a door you're closing on yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah. Language is so important, especially, and as you know, mental health and addiction go hand in hand, and there is a lot of stigma in those areas. And really, what kind of stigmas did you personally struggle with while you were in active addiction or even after?
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest things is I wanted to, a big thing for me was to contribute to the community when I got home. So, this is before I started the organization or anything like that. I just wanted to get involved. I wanted to have purpose in my life again. And I remember I volunteered for the fire department, and instantly, my record came back with some misdemeanor charges. They're like, you can't volunteer as a firefighter. I'm like, how does me having a past with that have to do with anything about me being able to save somebody from a house, or putting out a fire? So I very quickly did I understand, like, okay, like I have some obstacles that I need to get around, and workforce is going to be an issue for me. They're going to dig up a past, and it comes up even to this day. A lot of being a healthcare, involved in healthcare. There's a lot of different regulations, and I have to go through background screens and all those kind of things all the time. And it comes up, hey, can you tell me about this? Like, it was 15 years ago, but you get used to it. And what you do learn is you learn how to stand in your truth really well and be authentic, and be transparent. That's why I've always struggled with the anonymity part, because I found when I try to hide that past of myself that it often results in some kind of challenge,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
if I'm good about it, you kind of air that stuff out rather quickly, and you can still seize the opportunity, if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always challenges, and people are going to look at you sideways. A lot of the advocacy that I do today, we see it constantly. I mean, we run a lot of sober livings. Townships come out with their pitchforks and fire and don't want you in their town, and I have to stand there and fight for us. Um, and they'll use slurs and say
Mm.
things while I'm standing up there. So
Yeah.
the challenges aren't there. I've luckily I'm in a place that I have the confidence and the transparency that I can stand there and take it. But we have a lot of work to do still with stigma.
Yes, 100%. And when you do share your truth, it presents an opportunity to educate other
Right.
people. Yeah. No, that's really interesting and so important. Okay. Thank you for sharing your personal story. So inspiring. And I can't wait to read your book. And as well, Healing US Communities. So you founded this organization after you were witnessing the cracks in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you see as the biggest systemic gap families face when trying to get help for their loved ones?
So funding would be number one, obviously.
Mm,
There's a lot, specifically right now, there's even more changes and obstacles in the way. If you asked me 10 years ago, it was a lack of resources for individuals. Specifically in our area, a lot of people you had to go to a different state to get the resource that you needed. Now the problem is there's too many resources and you don't know how to navigate it. And funding becomes an issue because families will call and they already don't know how to navigate this system. And then if they don't have commercialized insurance or the ability to pay for care, they are kind of tossed through the system, and they keep getting these 1-800 numbers to call, and it seems like this never-ending battle. And you see a lot of families lose motivation to even try. They finally got to this point where they're seeking help, and they're getting the door slammed in their face over and over again.
yeah.
That is a huge issue. Also, the lack of aftercare.
Mm,
There's still a huge lack of aftercare. And one thing that I understand is that, 30, 60, 90 days of treatment, if you're lucky enough to get that covered, doesn't change someone's life until you put the tools that they learn in treatment into action. The
mm,
learning phase isn't done, right? So they
yeah.
need that warm handoff into life. And I think we've done a lot better, specifically here in the U.S. Like there are a lot of resource centers and there are peer support centers, um, but it takes so much more than just, hey, show up here if you want something. A lot of people need to be led, and they need that push. They need that warm hug right from the get-go, because people don't, there's a lot of social anxiety that occurs, and they need to feel a part of a community. And I know firsthand, being someone that was shipped around the United States to treatment, and walking into that first meeting, like there was people that gave me a hug, but I was very unsettled. Like I
Yeah.
didn't feel at home at first. So it really takes a warm hug, and I feel
Mm.
like there's a lot we could do still in that arena.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for sharing that. There's always those barriers and challenges, and I'm so excited to dig a little bit more into Healing Us. I've been calling it Healing US, like USA. It's Healing Us Communities, people. You're so kind not to correct me. Yeah.
Everybody does that, so I just let it go.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, but I got it now. So Healing Us is built on connection, peer support, which is so vital. We do peer support training for rural communities here at Stigma-Free Mental Health. Peer support is proven; it's amazing, and long-term healing. So, why do these three pillars matter more than ever right now?
Yeah, it's They've always mattered. They've always mattered. I think we're just having more of a conversation. It's not about a now. It's what works.
Mm.
What I have found and what I struggled with, the only reason this organization exists is because at the time, you know, I was sober. I was getting sober at 21 years old. And I had no outlet. I'm like, how do I make friends? Everybody's drinking right now at my age. Like, that's
Mm.
what they're doing. So like, where do I go? How do I, you know, how do I meet a girl? You know, like, what do I
Mm.
do as a young man trying to find his way? And I have no idea how to have fun without a substance. Like, I haven't experienced having fun. And I'm looking at this, okay, if I get sober now and stay sober for the rest of my life, I'm looking at 50 plus years, if I'm lucky, at doing this. And I need to have fun, right? I don't want to
Yeah.
be bored, you know? So really the whole organization started from just the need of connection. So it started as a sober social meetup group. That's what it was.
Mm.
That I wanted to meet people that were on the path of recovery, that just want to meet up on the weekends and do something fun.
Mm.
And that's where the idea was born. And then it morphs into this, you know, conglomerate and ecosystem that we have now. And these three pillars became very clear of what people needed. One, the opposite of addiction or an instability from the mental health side is connection. People
Mm.
feeling a part of something bigger than themselves and contributing to that, having a
Yeah.
purpose to that, right?
Yeah.
And being tied into that vision of themselves and the group. It's
Yeah.
really important. Peer support, being able to actually have someone sit on the other side of the table that understands what you're going through, has experienced it, can meet you where you're at. That's not going to be judgmental, or even if you feel like they're being judgmental because they don't understand or had that experience. I have found that peer support goes a long. It's typically more effective than even clinical care,
Yeah.
because of the people, that trusting factor that people have with it. And at the end of the day, this is all about trust in this relationship.
Mm.
And long-term healing, again, we're not going to solve this in a short period. It takes, what I've seen, it takes a good 18 months to 24 months for someone to really grab a hold of this new lifestyle of theirs and run with it.
Mm.
Um, 18 to 24 months of doing the right thing and navigating these bumps and bruises with a warm hand to lead you, and
Yeah.
then they take it and run. And the success is proven. You know, we've had a third party come in. We were lucky enough to win a huge grant from SAMHSA back in
Wow.
2017. And part of that grant was that we had to be studied, like case studied, and it was really amazing, the results. 87% success rate with keeping people stable for 18 plus months.
Wow.
You know, 79% of the individuals were able to find a career path. 100% of the individuals were employed. Just fantastic number, reduction in anxiety symptoms, reduction in depression symptoms,
Mhm.
trauma healing, all this stuff. And really, the recipe is simple. It really is simple. It build a place where people feel like home, and develop a carrot and a stick, right? Like a motivation
Mm.
for them to chase towards, and accountability to hold them to it.
Yeah.
And it's really not that complicated to make happen.
Yeah.
And cost-effective.
Yeah, for sure. And I love how you say the warm hand, like bringing in the connection. And we all need a sense of belonging. You know,
Mhm.
that's just so huge. And I see within those pillars that is very integrated. So I want to move on to your memoir. I could talk forever about healing us communities. It's so wonderful. And you've grown it a lot from a peer support group. It is so impressive. Love it.
It
Okay.
took on a life of its own.
Yeah. Wow. And SAMHSA, yeah, they're huge. Yeah, I'm so impressed. Okay, so let's just briefly talk about Healing Us, the book, the memoir, before we wrap up. And I was wondering, what do you hope a young person struggling with addiction takes away from your book?
It was really important to me to not just tell the story. I think there's a lot of stories out there, specifically addiction, that is like the
Mhm.
Hollywood version, right? It's obviously traumatic. There's stories that come out of it. But it was really important to me to dive into the mindset, the unraveling of someone. Why does someone choose to go down that path?
Mhm.
Um, and in my background, I didn't have this big traumatic event that I could go, oh, this happened to me and it sent me off, the rails. It was like a slow gnawing,
Mm.
dull pain, for whatever reason. And, I wanted to discuss that unraveling. And I'm hoping that a couple things. One, as a family member reading it, they can understand maybe it's not their fault and stop doing that self blame so they could get to more solution focused thinking.
Yeah.
Um, and also for the person that may be going through it, they can kind of see themselves in it and maybe stop themselves from going down that path, or explain why they're dealing with this. And I always call it like a thought tornado, like stuck in this ever loop, and be able
Mm.
to see clearly maybe a path out, or that
Mhm.
have hope that there's change is possible.
Yeah.
But really just to give people that opportunity to breathe and have some understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. That awareness, understanding, and acceptance of ourselves and others, it really relates to a lot of areas. So
Mhm.
thank you. And then just lastly, what is one message you want to leave, say for our families, right? Because families often, well, always, I'm sure, who knows, feel very lost when
Mhm.
they, with their children go through this, and maybe they're feeling alone or helpless. Is there some sort of message you can share?
The biggest thing that I can say is do your research. There's
Mhm.
so many resources out there now, which is fantastic that we have more accessibility, more dynamic type of treatments that are available. And don't lose hope. You have to keep turning over stones and figuring out what's going to work for you. And it's not a one size fits all, the recovery
Mhm.
process. Everybody is going to have a different treatment plan. And it's really important that you don't give up hope or blame the person that they didn't get it the first time. Because oftentimes we have to have different experiences and different experiences and different roads to recovery until we find out what's going to fit for us. So allow that opportunity to come in and don't fall off the path. But call as many numbers as you can. Do as many Google resources, and some of the best ones are on page 25 of Google.
Mm.
So you got to sit there and take the time and do that.
Dig a little,
Uh,
yeah.
will help you lead there.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, look up peer support in your area. Typically, they're more of an unbiased approach to finding resources,
Yeah.
and they can give you like a la carte menu of different options that you may have available for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Your insight is very valuable. I think a lot of time people just don't know where to go. They feel alone and they feel like it's just helpless. Oh, I got a little message from a friend from high school, Ron Tuck. Cool. He says, fantastic, Daniel. Thank you for all you're doing in the mental health space. And thank you, Andrea, for facilitating the conversation. Wonderful, Ron. We know that you're a strong supporter of stigma-free mental health, and that, yeah, you're a lovely person who I know as well supports men in the mental health space. So thank you for commenting. That's great.
Thank you.
Okay. Where can people get a copy?
It's available on Amazon. You could look up Healing Us right in Amazon, and it'll pop right up. Um, that's the easiest way to get it. Fastest
Yeah.
shipping.
And how do people look up Healing Us communities? Like anywhere people could find you or where you'd want to send them online?
Yeah, the easiest part is to go on my personal website, which is danieljregan.com. And you can see everything that I'm doing. There's a lot of different nodes to Daniel at this point. So we have our treatment centers, we have our nonprofit peer support. I have my advocacy group that I'm doing a lot with legislation. So I have a lot of different things going on, and you could get it all in one spot there.
Okay. Awesome. Please stay on the line. And I would love to say goodbye to you and thank you and have a little chat. And yeah, so thank you, Daniel. That was a very inspiring and eye-opening conversation today. And I really appreciate your vulnerability in sharing your personal story, really digging in and being very honest that you were in an abandoned hotel about to, who knows what would have happened. And your mom sounds like an amazing woman, like your savior. I just think as a duo, you're both really amazing. And I appreciate so much what you do in the world.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for giving me a platform to share it. It's important.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We are going to close off at Stigma-Free Voices. We are listed on our website, of course, at stigmafreementalhealth.com, but also now we're on Spotify. So that's very exciting. You can share from our website. You can also share obviously through Spotify as well. And yes, Stigma-Free Voices. Please do check it out. If you are watching online on our Facebook or YouTube, please share. And if you are watching this after the fact, please do feel free to share as well. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate all of you for supporting those yourself and having that conversation around mental health and addiction. Please know that people can change and that there is hope for everybody. So thanks, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care.